Hey everybody, Carl here, and this is the YJ diesel swap. I jumped the gun a little bit and I started ripping and tearing at this thing. All the boring stuff's out of the way. 2.5's out, AX5's out. Whatever transfer case is on the AX5 that won't work with my new setup is out. So, things surprisingly have a lot of room in the engine bay once you remove, the front core support and everything out of it. So I've drained the fuel tank. I'm gonna have to get it open, clean it out before I can use a diesel tank, remove the fuel pump. Just put a straight up pickup tube because the diesel engine has a suction pump off the side of the injection pump. Right now I am getting ready to bolt the transmission to the engine, which you can't see because it's out of frame. Both are actually out of frame. Then, pretty much, then I get to mount the transmission up on the engine, put it in after I cut those old engine mounts off because they won't work. Then I have some other engine mounts that I'm going to need to make once I get the engine positioned where I want it and kind of make sure everything's how I need it. Then basically assemble from there. But right now I'm working on, you have to drill the flywheel to accept the adapter plate or the adapter ring thing, I don't know. And then this is the adapter plate from Mercedes 4x4 diesel for the Om617 to AX15 transmission. So we'll put this on, we'll get the flywheel set up, squared away. The only thing I have, my X15 I got is a small input shaft, or pilot bearing I should say. They have two different ones. One's a 3/4 and one is a whatever the heck smaller. I didn't measure, I don't know, 1/2 inch maybe. So here's a pilot bearing for the 3/4. Here's what I'm going to say is 1/2 inch. So as you can tell, the hole's a lot larger on this one than this one. Well, the issue is, since mine is the 1/2 inch input shaft, I'm actually going to measure that, make sure I'm right. Roughly 1/2 inch, I mean, whatever the hell. It don't matter. I have the small input shaft. The kit's designed for the big one because it has this nice bronze bushing in here that's been pressed in. And that's actually your pilot bushing then. They've done that for eons in the automotive industry. So, obviously, I can't press that out and press this bearing in because it's too small. Even the 3/4 inch one is. So what I might be able to do, depending on distance in there and how everything sets, I might be able to drill it out to that size and press that into the bronze. Or I'm going to find a transmission with a 3/4 inch input shaft, or buy a new input shaft and go through the trans and square it away. Not quite sure what I'm going to do yet. I'll decide a little bit later. But right now I need to get the adapter plate for the transmission onto the engine. Get that on. You need to grind out the oil pan where the starter is going to sit. I need to make sure I have a starter for this because I might need a 4-liter starter. I have a 2.5 starter. I don't know if they're the same. I doubt it. So I'm going to need a source of starter to get that to go. And then I'm going to need to drill some holes in my flywheel to put this new mount on. And then, yeah, going to go from there. All right, I'm going to bring it down and we'll see how this plate mounts up. Alright, so I pulled the flywheel off and then I have pulled the original trans mounting plate. So we're left with this. I've cleaned some of it up. It doesn't need to be 100% clean because it's going to get gross in the future anyway. So now we can bolt up our other mount. I'm going to spray out some of the holes for the mount just so they don't so the bolts don't back out. Just give it a quick douching. So, as per the instructions, you're supposed to mark the flywheel from the engine, which I already did. Remove the flywheel, which I already did. Remove the stock intermediate engine to transmission adapter plate from the Om617. You're supposed to save the 4 bolts. Did that. Discard the washers. Apparently you don't need the washers. You mount the bell housing adapter to the back of the Om617 by lining up 2 existing dowel pins. There's 1, there's 2. It says here that they are 2/1000 tolerance, so they might need to be lightly filed with a round file for final fit. But you want to keep them as tight as possible to the plate so it doesn't move around or do anything funky like that. Then you tighten, or hand tighten, 2 of the 23mm center bolts. I don't think they're 22mm long, 23mm long maybe. Anyway, you hand tighten 2 of those to hold the adapter in place, and then you'll basically grind this whole ear off of the oil pan. And I'll show you later, once I have it all bolted together, how much you need to grind off. Once you get the starter block clearance, you remove the 2 bolts, but leave the adapter on the motor, and then you apply them later with blue Loctite and torque them to 40 foot-pounds. So that's how that goes. That's seemingly pretty easy. Now let's see how I can make this complicated on myself. Alright, so these 2 holes, might have to file them up a little bit. I'm going to get on that and turn the camera back on once I'm done. Alright, file those 2 holes out a little bit. Still tight. I had to smack it on with a rubber mallet, so I know they should be good. I shouldn't have taken too much off. So, and it says put 2 of these on, probably so you don't drop this stupid thing on your foot. And to discard the washers. Alright, now you can see how much needs to be lopped off the starter area. So I'm going to get to that. I haven't exactly figured out what tools I'll use, but I'll use a pile of tools somehow. Maybe I'll live stream me hand filing it. That'd be exciting. Alright, so far the best method is angle grinding, and then break a chunk off once you've weakened it substantially enough. Then I'll come through here and I guess clean it up with a flap disc. This is super messy part. I'm fucking covered in aluminum glitter. This is a good one to wear the safety squints. Alright, so I left you guys off with grinding out this area, so I got that all ground out as best as I could. And then I kind of skipped ahead a little bit and accidentally got a little too rammy. So basically, plate was on, pulled the bolts out, Loctite them, blue Loctite. That gets to 40 foot-pounds into the engine block. Then I drilled the holes for the flywheel, which was just a matter of using the factory AX15 flywheel bolts and bolting the adapter to the flywheel, and then drilling a 25/64 hole where each of these are, and that makes a good fit for these bolts. These I went to factory like say 4-liter specs where they go to 100. It's supposed to be like 105 foot-pounds, but I went to 100 foot-pounds with the swap kit. There's these washers you're supposed to put under these bolts to prevent the ends of those bolts from coming in contact with the crankshaft, making it not sit right. So those are 100 foot-pounds, blue Loctited, and then these are 40 foot-pounds. Those are the stock bolts out of the Om617. Those all go to 40 foot-pounds. So 100 and 40. So this flywheel is zero balanced. You could 180-degree balance it with the factory Mercedes stuff, but I'm just gonna run it at a zero balance. So, which basically means this thing is neutrally balanced, and whatever the internals are or whatever they're at. So instead of counterbalanced with the flywheel, it should be fine. Next step's going to be basically attach the transmission to it and test fit it and figure out where the thing goes, because I'm not entirely sure. This is a X15 out of a Cherokee. I actually noticed one of these mounts busted off, which uses a mount similar to this, but this is a TJ mount, so it's got 4 holes, while my YJ mount only has 2 holes and has a completely different mount on the AX5. So I'll have to figure out that and exactly where this thing is going to sit and exactly where that's going to sit. And then basically a matter of lobbing those 2 mounts off and slipping it in, tacking up the mounts once the engine's level and square and all that good stuff, tack them to the frame, pull the engine out without bumping those mounts at all, and then brace them and strengthen them up and do all that good stuff, and then we should be pretty close to bolt the mounts back in with the engine on and transmission on. And at that point I'll put the actual clutch stuff on, so I'm not fighting with trying to get splines aligned while just trying to do a quick test fit of everything. So got the motor in, got the mounts on. They fit pretty nice and snug in there, actually. I think I did a halfway decent job of measuring and getting it centered. Transmission's on. It's not as far that way as it should be, mostly because, you know, hitting there. The old crane's not long enough. I should make a longer boom for it at some point, but that's neither here nor there. All right, so I thought about the engine positioning a little bit, and I actually brought it forward as far as the trans mount will let me. Trans mount slotted about 2 inches, so I figured if I had the mount placed exactly where the AX5 one was, and the AX15 is about 2 inches longer, and I got about 2 inches adjustment, I brought this sucker all the way forward because I have more than enough room between radiator, fan, and all that to do. And that gives me more room back here on the firewall. Coupled with, you know, the transmission's 2 inches longer, so put a transfer case on there. I'm going to have a little bit more room for a rear drive shaft, which on these things are obnoxiously short anyway. So if I bought myself a little room there, fantastic. If not, it is what it is. Squared up the mounts, and I welded them in from the bottom. So I'm going to pull the motor back out, make sure they're all level still, make sure they're exactly where I want them. Then I'm going to brace them, and then pretty much put the motor back in and start putting stuff back together, starting to mock up everything else that I want to mock up, and going from there. Alright, motor's out. Kind of knocked that mount with the trans while I was pulling it out. So I'll bang that back up, straighten it all up, and then go from there. Alright, start start fabbing mounts or brackets. I'm gonna come from like this corner up to the top of the frame here, down at the bottom, do the same, and yeah, see how it goes. All right, the mounts are in. I have a bit of triangulation there and down below on both sides. So that way it all should be as strong as possible. Now I'm gonna hit it with some paint and then slip the motor and trans back in it and figure out what else I need to do.
Many months later.
Right, just a still. Just in case.
Oil feed's not tight to turbo.
Ah! We're just bleeding her.
And out the other side too from somewhere.
Out the other side.
Yeah. Probably your overpressure line. Well, the shutdown top emitter works.
Alright, so right now I'm going to take a break on the RX-7, hop on this a little bit. I want to get the transmission back in, so that way I could drive it in and out of the garage as I please to work on it, instead of pushing it, because this thing heavy and sucks to push. So what you do, would be take all this out, run, and the strap down through, onto it, and you can just go through, that deep, that way, but this will just on, you can careful. Yeah, that's use. Can you full load up, long lane, and push. No, we can follow the Alright, so everything's in here, dangling. Got to move that jack back a little bit, but right now I'm going to fill the trans and transfer case as long as I have the right fluid on the shelf, and then go from there. Got to put the shift tower on and the transfer case linkage. Hopefully all that works. Then trans cross member and skid plate and rear drive shaft, and then we'll be set. Somewhat set. Alright, so this is another day, clearly, on my incoherent Jeep ramblings. Skid plate's in, all that's done. Driveline's basically in. I still am waiting on master and slave cylinder. So I started moving over to radiator hoses. Top one is just an 1.25 inch by I think 13-inch long generic flexi hose. Lower hose I found is this, which is this part number for Daco. And then I had to use 1.5 inch exhaust coupler. And then to this hose, which I've trimmed down. And that'll fit down there without contacting the fan or the crank. And use the stock YG radiator, which I need a new one because mine is roached. But that's the easy part. Getting these all made up is the hard part. I gotta finish up the downpipe yet. I got it roughly made up. ran out of welding gas, so I'm running flux core, so the welds look like crap. Here, hoses, at some point here. Probably just use a generic section of hoses. Yeah, right now, I'm at the worst part of any project, especially this caliper. I wish I was one of those fancy YouTubers that could just take it down to their fabricator buddy and come back a week later and have it all done and it looks all great and all that. But that ain't me. So I got to do it all myself. Not the worst, but some days it gets a little shitty. Or, you know, it takes forever to do stuff because, you know, there's 3 different radiator hoses and probably cost me about $75 just to run 2 rad hoses. Stuff's a little ridiculous sometimes doing this kind of work, but hopefully in the end it'll be worth it. Hopefully I don't completely hate the way it drives. Who knows? Alright. I was working pretty late on this thing last night. Pretty much got the generic temporary intake figured out. Have the old tractor trailer grade dump tube for the crankcase breather. Still need to finish up the exhaust. Wires somewhat routed. Still need to finish wiring my coolant temp sensor. I have radiator hoses done. I got heater hoses done, so they're all where they should be. What else? Change out the throttle return spring for a dual spring. So, you know, 2 is better than 1. So in case that snaps, I won't just completely like rev where it wants to. Coolant hoses are there. Still need to put the oil cooler where it needs to go. I need to pull the front end off to do that again, but I'm going to leave the rad on. Well, it's loosely drivable now. So we're going to go on a little test drive. No clue how to really set the camera up. Smoky as fuck. So this thing's a hoot to drive. So the brakes are a little bit to be desired, but I mean, whoop-de-doo. I didn't hook up the alternator yet. A few other small little things. Had an oil leak. Seemed like I fixed that. Yeah, all that good stuff. Got my kind of adrenaline going now. I need to finish the exhaust. I need to reseal that. I need to get a shift knob that doesn't suck. A shifter that doesn't suck. That one's a little too short. I don't know where the YJ one I had went, but it's currently not here. need to hook up power steering yet. That involves getting the hose made. It's going to be a little bit till I get that done yet, but I can always romp it around, no power steering, whoop-de-doo. So yeah, I'm pumped. So I'm gonna start getting the alternator figured out so I could actually, like, I don't know, drive it.